What are the options if you want to do macro photography on a Hasselblad X1D, X2D or the 907X? We'll have a look at that in this video. Welcome to my channel, where I this time delve into macro photography using my 3 different Hasselblad X system cameras. On this channel I do all kinds of photography, and I use camera systems from several manufacturers. I review both high-end cameras as well as cheap point-and-shoot cameras, and almost everything in between. I like all kinds of cameras: vintage 35mm cameras, vintage medium format cameras, large format cameras, early CCD based digital cameras, modern more digital cameras, both full frame as well as crop sensor cameras. But most of all, I adore my awesome Hasselblad X system cameras like this X2D. And today these last will be used to check what options you have if you want to or if you would like to do macro photography on these cameras. We'll look at expensive as well as very cheap ways, but I'll focus more on the options in the middle, as there are some very good starting points here. Some with a few caveats, more on that later. The first option is from Hasselblad. I don't own the Hasselblad XCD 120mm f3.5 macro lens, and I will not be looking at it here for 2 reasons. I don't think it's a real macro lens, as it is only capable of 1 to 2 macro photography. That is, the object you are shooting can only become approximately half the size of real life on the sensor. And then the price for it, especially when it's only 1 to 2 capable, is just too high. It's undoubtedly a very, very sharp lens. Most macro lenses are sharp, and one from Hasselblad probably exceeds most others in sharpness. But when it can't do real macro, which is normally regarded as 1 to 1, then it can't really count. If you use this with an extension ring, you can get far bigger enlargement, probably more than 1 to 1. And as this lens is optimized for shooting close-up, that would probably be a good solution. But for me it is way too expensive, and Hasselblad only offers a very short extension ring that won't bring you to 1 to 1. You can get one from another company, more on that later. But let's go to the other end of the spectrum for macro photography. One of the cheapest options is to go with the close-up filters. It'll give you ability to produce high magnification, but the sharpness will be the lowest of the options I present. And even more, this solution will be very prone to chromatic aberration and other optical flaws. You can make huge enlargement though. So it's a cheap way to try macro and find out if it's something for you. I use this set of close-up filters that consists of +1, +2, +4 and +10 diopter filters. But I'll only show examples using the 2 strongest filters, +4 and +10. Let me present you with my studio objects that I'll portray with all the macro solutions I have on list, except the before mentioned Hasselblad XCD macro lens. It's my old awesome Mamiya C330 TLR camera that I have placed in a photo tent. I use this to have the exact same conditions for all the solutions with regards to lighting and camera stability, so we don't have influence on the quality of the images from any outside parameters. I'll be shooting both with my 907X CFV 250C and my X1D camera, X1D Mark II, but as they have exactly the same sensor and processing engine, that won't make any difference. I'll also show you a bunch of images shot outdoors and away from the studio, but here the subjects will differ, and they are there to show you what you can obtain in everyday use of the macro solution. These shots will be made on my Hasselblad X2D due to its built-in IBIS, and most of the outdoor shots are made handheld. These shots are made with the XCD 28P lens, first showing you how close you can get with the lens itself. It produces a 1:6 enlargement at a distance of 22 centimeters. At the same time, you see that it's not very pleasing look for our subject. That becomes quite distorted. There's nothing wrong with the lens, it's just because we get so close with a wide-angle lens that the object becomes distorted. It's the same problem if you use a wide angle to shoot a head-only portrait. Second shots are done with a +4 close-up filter, and here you get a lot closer. But the distortion is again not pleasing to our subject. Let's then change to a better lens, my Hasselblad 90V lens, which in itself is very, very sharp. I made a long-term review of it not long ago, and I'll leave a link to that in the description. First shot without any close-up filters is more pleasing to our subject, and it is portrayed at an enlargement of 1:5.8 at a distance of 67 centimeters, only slightly larger enlargement than with the 28mm. Shooting close-up, you also see that the depth of field gets very thin. Therefore, I show you 3 images. This one shot at f2.5, the lens most open aperture. Next shot is at f8, and you definitely see a much larger depth of field. Third shot is taken at f22, which shows even better depth of field. I could go to f32, but then diffraction would cause the overall sharpness to decrease. Therefore, I use these settings in all shots. First wide open, then f8, and lastly f22. There will be one exception to this rules, as I have one lens that stops down to f45, and I couldn't resist going all the way, but that's for later. For the next shots I used +4 diopter filter on the 90V lens, and again I show you the results at f2.5, f8 and f22. Here we reach 1:1.7 magnification. Already better than the expensive Hasselblad macro lens can do on its own. Lastly, using close-up filters, I use the 90V lens with the extreme +10 diopter filter, again at f2.5, where some flaring appeared, at f8 and finally f22. The magnification is here quite good, and now we are into real macro territory with a 1:0.8, or in other words, the subject is enlarged 1.22 times on the sensor compared to real life. But one thing is shooting in the photo tent with sufficient light and a tripod. Let's now take the lenses, both the 28P and the 90V, out and see what we can get with the +4 close-up filter when shooting handheld. The next macro solution I'll have a look at is extension rings. You can get extension rings for your X2D lenses, and that'll give you decent results, but there's only a small 90mm original Hasselblad extension ring for the X system. That doesn't add much macro functionality to the lenses. You can get the extension rings from a company named Photodiox. They are available in several sizes, 11mm, 20 and 48mm, but I only have the 20mm, which doesn't give real macro. But depending on the lens, it can come close to 1:1, but doesn't quite get there. The good thing is that there are no optical elements in an extension ring, therefore you won't ruin the performance of your Hasselblad lens. But still, you are actually enlarging the image circle, and therefore even tiny lens flaws will be enlarged. Except the Hasselblad macro lens, the lenses are not optimized for close-up shooting. Thus, the performance will not be exactly the same as when shooting at the distance the lens can focus to on its own. Anyway, due to the quality of the Hasselblad lenses, the results are quite good. Both sets of images are shot on the 90V lens with the extension ring, and again I show you f2.5, f8 and f22. The reason I only show the results from the 90V and not the 28P is that in these studio shots the distortion of the subject with the 28mm is so large that I don't think anyone would use that lens for this purpose. But now I will show you results with both these lenses from outside my studio. Now that you've seen studio shots and images from my neighborhood, I would like to go through some of the main pros and cons of the two methods: close-up filters and extension tubes or extension rings. First of all, I'll emphasize one peculiarity. The effect of an extension ring diminishes with longer focal length, whereas the effect of close-up filters is stronger the longer the focal length. Therefore, if you wish to use long focal lengths for macro, it might be best to go for the close-up filter solution. That is, all other factors equaled out, like sharpness and flaring and stuff. The advantage of close-up filters is mainly in cost when comparing to the available extension rings for Hasselblad and the ability to create huge enlargement of your subject. Another advantage is that you don't have to unmount the lens with the risk of getting dust on your sensor. But there is a lot of disadvantages to the close-up filter solution. If you want to use different lenses with differing filter diameters, you must buy several sets of close-up lenses or buy a set for the largest diameter, which might be more costly, plus some more step-ups, plus some step-up rings in order to use the larger filter on the smaller diameter lenses. Another downside of filters is that unless you buy high-quality double-element close-up filters, the optical quality of your solution will diminish. How sad is that when you have invested in expensive Hasselblad lenses to see the solution produce flaring, ghosting or chromatic aberration. Though I will say that my expectations were low when I started using close-up lenses, and I was positively surprised when I saw the first results. Some have a bit of flaring. There are signs of chromatic aberrations. Corner sharpness is diminished as well, but as I tend to have my main subject near the center, that doesn't bother me too much. Another gripe is that it might not be possible to use other filters at the same time as the close-ups. At least my two strongest filters bulge so much that I can't screw another filter under or on top of the close-up filters. That's not the case if you go for the extension ring solution. Here the lens will accept filters as usual. Also, this solution retains most of the optical quality of the lens, and using Hasselblad lenses, that's a big plus. Furthermore, the extension ring can be used with any Hasselblad lens, even if you later decide to invest in the Hasselblad 120mm macro lens. That lens will give 1 to 1.5 with the 20mm ring that I use, or if you invest in the Viesturs 48mm, it even gets you to 1 to 1.1, very close to what is called real macro. Using that ring with my 45p lens would bring me to 1 to 0.8, thus making subjects larger on the sensors than in real life, and still retaining the image quality of my lens. Unfortunately, the 48mm wasn't available when I invested in an extension ring. The cons of extension tubes is, as mentioned, that you have to remove the lens to mount the extension ring. And furthermore, you lose the ability to focus to infinity. Actually, you also lose that ability with the close-up filters, but as they are easy to remove and you don't risk dust on the sensor, it's not a big issue. Another downside is that if you get very close with your lens using the extension ring, you will get outside the focus area that the lens is optimized for, and thus start to lose image quality. I don't think this is a serious issue unless you mount several extension rings on top of each other for even larger magnification. Something that is possible, but not recommended with other lenses and specific macro lenses that are optimized for close shooting. Still within the Hasselblad ecosystem, you may know from my many reviews I have made that I use Hasselblad HC lenses extensively. Those lenses are made for the Hasselblad H series cameras that originally shot on film, but later models were made for digital, and many of these cameras like my H2D 239 can shoot both on film and digital sensor. You can watch reviews of HC 35mm, 80mm, 100mm and 150mm on my channel. One lens that I haven't reviewed so far though is the HC 120mm macro, but we'll have a look at what we can do with that lens in this video. One thing I'll mention right away is it does 1:1 macro, unlike its XCD counterpart. I'll be back with a full review of this lens also outside the macro scope. It's a huge and heavy lens, therefore it is, in my opinion, impossible to use handhold, and to support it you will need a tripod. And you might also need the Hasselblad HX bracket, otherwise there will be a heavy strain on the lens mount from the 1.5 kilo heavy lens and the adapter. Looking at the studio images made with this lens, we are now very close to our subject, and the enlargement is, as mentioned, 1:1. Another speciality of this lens, dating from its origin in a camera system with even larger sensors, is the ability to stop down all the way to f45. For that reason, I present 4 images here, like before, on its most wide open aperture, which on this lens is f4, at f8, f22, and now even at f45. Surprising fact is that though there is a slight signs of diffraction, the overall sharpness of the image actually increased at f45, and then the gain in depth of field is a bonus. As stated earlier, this lens is very heavy and also large. Shooting handheld outdoors is problematic. Therefore, with the HX bracket mounted like in the studio, all shots are done on tripod. As the weather outside was atrocious, I decided to shoot some more images of my cameras. Here is the shelf with most of my Hasselblads and some vintage cameras. And now we dive into macro shots of these, done with the HC 120mm macro. That was all for this part, first part of shooting macro on the Hasselblad X cameras. There will be part 2. I just want to sum up my experience so far. I got better results from the close-up filters than anticipated, and I could get more than 1:1 enlargement. I could spot some of the optical flaws with this solution, but less than expected. The extension ring solution didn't give me a real macro, so in that respect it was a failure. If the 48mm ring had been available, I would have been able to create higher than 1:1 enlargement, but I couldn't get it. The very positive thing is that you have full autofocus control over your lens, which failed many times with the close-up filters. And the sharpness of the images produced with the extension ring were very good. I didn't notice any kind of degradation in IQ from any of my lenses. The huge HC 120mm macro provides ultra sharp 1:1 macro shots. If you're ready to carry this heavy lens around and probably always use a tripod, or going to use it in the studio anyway, it's a real performer. I'll have a further look at this lens later, as I'll do a full review also outside the macroscope. With its sharpness and focal length, it could be an awesome lens for a lot of things. Again, if you're willing to work with this beast. Subscribe if you like to see the full review. In the next macro episode, I'll be looking at some macro solutions that utilize lenses and options outside Hasselblad territory, but a solution that provide very good results. So stay tuned for the next episode. Please subscribe to my channel and also hit the like button on this video. Thank you very much for this time. See forward to presenting you with some more macro solutions for the Hasselblad X1D, X2D or 907X cameras. Bye for now.